This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and today I'm going to talk about a variety of things, not just one thing. Usually when I make these recordings, I'll talk about one subject, I'll stop the recording, make another recording on another subject, and so on. Instead, I'm just going to ramble on like I did on my Murdathon over the weekend. I'm a little surprised that I got the number of people I did, considering that it was a rather sloppy presentation. But as time goes on, I hope to get the bugs worked out of the system so I offer a more worthwhile presentation to everyone. Now, the first thing I guess I will touch upon is all these task forces. Now, I noticed that Tim Holmsatz is back using the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. For a while there, he was just going with the task force, mainly because of the investigations going on, and he felt it was wiser that he dropped the Pentagon Pedophile. That didn't last very long. Now, I don't know if he's going to claim that there is yet another task force that's a super duper secret, cannot talk about it task force. But, time will tell. But anyway, the Pentagon task force is back. And humming right along. He's back barging into the Waterlane case again. He has this fascination with missing or murdered child cases, and this constant need to come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories. And so we go on with another family that's either lost a child or a child that's been murdered, and some complete stranger from the outside barges in on their problem and creates all these weird conspiracy theories. It's a sad reality today. And so, on we go. And then we have Field McConnell and yet another task force. Or not really a task force. I was sent an old blog of his, the link. And it turns out that Field McConnell had formed a global detective agency. Now, in digging back on this, it follows the same old pattern. Field McConnell creates organizations. And these organizations eventually wind up seeking donations for their cause. And this is something that's done. I was involved in something like this, but the organization was basically a group of people that got together. An attorney basically ran the thing. It's still in existence, and it was called VACTIV or something like that. And basically what it was a Citizen Cybercrime Task Force, and it was formed basically to do what I'm doing now, is going after people that create situations on the internet that involve criminal acts. But what Field McConnell and Timothy Charles Holmsatz and Kirk Pendergrass and others do is quite different. They form these task forces, these organizations, for the express purpose of ripping people off. It's about as blunt as you can get, because that's exactly what they're doing. The Children's Crusade, at first glance, has a noble mission to save children. To try and do something about organized groups that either are involved in sex trafficking, illegal adoptions, or at the darkest endeavor would be these satanic ritual groups. That may be not their mission, but that's not what they're doing. They're preying on people's emotions and concerns and beliefs for the sole purpose of collecting money. Or they're in it for the fame, the glory, and the power. Virtually all these organizations bring God into the picture, reading Bible scriptures, using a quote from the Bible as a motto or what have you in their trademark. And they prey upon people that are sincere in their beliefs and sincere in their concerns. It's always been that way. That's why the megachurches exist, is because of this formula. And people may think, and they actually do, that these organizations are there for the better good. But if they look into the backgrounds of these people, they'd realize that they're not. They're there to collect money. Yeah, you go from a global detective agency to the Children's Crusade, and now to the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. I have a hard time continuously with the name of that group. But in short, it's a pedophile task force. You know, the Children's Crusade is not enough. You gotta have a task force that has a name in it that implies that it's part of the federal government. Now, this creates a legal situation for these individuals, because now you're looking at, on one side, you're impersonating as a representative of a federal agency. You're claiming to be in direct contact with the Pentagon and with the President of the United States through an intermediary. Now, Phil McConnell has declared that he has met and talked to the President and the First Lady. They even came up with a picture. And they also claim that John F. Kennedy Jr., who died in an airplane, somehow got reincarnated or didn't die actually in the aircraft. And he's going to be Vice President of the United States next year. And people believe this stuff. That's the odd thing about all this. And Phil McConnell, Timothy Holmseth, Kirk Pendergrass, Chris Elliott, and others take advantage of this. Take advantage of the political climate. Take advantage of all this misinformation out there. Now, this happens on all sides of the political spectrum. There are people on the left that are just as bad. But the reason I concentrate on the people on the right is because of one individual, Timothy Charles Holmseth. Timothy Holmseth created this situation, and so Timothy Holmseth is the one that I concentrate on. I have personal problems because of Timothy Holmseth. There was a person before him known as Radio. I had a problem with her, and I dealt with her. So now Radio's not around anymore. But now we have Timothy Holmseth and Phil McConnell and the rest of this bunch. And it's the same problem that existed 15 years ago, 17 years ago, when the Citizens Anti-Cybercrime Task Force came about. That there are people out there that rip you off or take advantage of you in one way or another, or harm people in one way or another. They commit cyber crimes. So you have task forces for good, task force for bad, for the sake of collecting money. And that's what Field McConnell and these other people do. They come up with ways to suck money out of good, decent, hardworking people. Out of people that may not be able to afford it, but they'll send $1, $5, $100 in the hopes that somebody's doing something good, that somebody's able to rescue these children, people that are able to get them out of legal situations, people that they believe are trying to make society a better place. And unfortunately, it's just the opposite. They're making things worse. Now, you would think it would be a lofty goal to go out and say, we're going to prove to you that these people are wrong, we're going to give you the facts, we're going to show you they're frauds, and try and convince people not to take part in these things. But that's only half the battle, because you may steer people away, some, but you're not going to steer all of them. You're not going to steer away enough of them to put a damper on the efforts of these people. If anything, what's going to happen is that they're going to get bolder and threatening, because we're talking about a great deal of money here. We're talking about the potential of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. Now, I'll give you an example. Field McConnell has 44,000 subscribers. 1,000. That's the population of a city. My hometown of Elmira, New York, averages around 44,000 people. That's a lot of people. And if every one of those people just sent $1 per month to Field McConnell, $1, that's, there you can get a cheeseburger at McDonald's for $1 at participating stores. Get a can of Pepsi. Get a candy bar. A lot of things you can buy for $1, so nobody's going to miss $1. So you send them $1. $44,000 a month. That's $450,000 a year, almost $500,000 a year, $500,000. For what? For a fancy website, for a YouTube channel, for this field report, where he does absolutely nothing except make all these proposals, Zim bonds, all these lofty ideas. He's going to go out and buy a veteran's home. Going to do all these things. And yet he can't even pay his own bills. For $500,000 a year will pay for the house. It's funny about these charities, because that's what it is. You got Goodwill, for example. Lofty purpose, you donate junk to them, they turn around and sell the junk, and they try to help out people to get jobs and everything. The guy that runs Goodwill draws an astronomical salary. Whether or not he's justified in having that, they run the thing legally, they do what they promise to do, but the guy makes a fortune. He makes, I think it's in the millions of dollars in a salary. People don't like it, but that's how these companies operate. As long as they spend a certain amount of money that's set by the federal government towards their purpose, they're allowed to collect a salary. People are employed, people have jobs, There's overhead involved. But they do what they promise they're going to do. They rehabilitate people, give them jobs, do all of that. So they do what they promise to do, and so does the Salvation Army and the Red Cross and all these other professional organizations. But you get people like Field McConnell, Kirk Pendergrass, they don't do what they promise to do. They take all this money and they don't account for it. If they're a 501c3 or C4, they have to publish a report and account where all the money went. If the officers of the company are drawing salaries, they have to show that. They have to show where the expenses are. Where is this money going? They don't do any of that. So they're in violation of the IRS. Right there. And then, in the case of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and E-Clause, it is alleged that they are falsely representing to be agents, employees, contractors, or some other way affiliated with the federal government. And it's against the law. You can't do that. It's a felony. It's a minute, I believe it's 3 years and $35,000 per violation, up to. And the Federal Trade Commission, they got involved because of this wire fraud, which is a federal crime, and you're collecting money under false pretenses using the internet. That's wire fraud. So they got that legal problem. They're misrepresenting themselves. They're not saving children. They're not involved with the U.S. government, and they're not licensed attorneys. They're scammers, rip-off artists, snake oil salesmen, all kinds of names you can call them. That's what these people are doing. They're not saving anything. And at the same time, they are doing their damnedest to make sure that people stay with them. Tim Holmsath, for instance, demands that people take him at his word, demands that he not have to offer proof for what he is claiming. Have faith, he says. I can't prove what I say. You just have to take it on faith, like your faith in God. So already, he's hooked them. Because these people are religious. They believe in God. They believe in something they can't see or touch or feel. And so, Holmsath ropes them in. Field McConnell ropes them in. Kirk Pendergrass ropes them in. All these people use God as a hook. That's what we call it in the car business. It's a hook. You use the hook to get them in the showroom. Now, if you ever get one of those brochures with a little key in it, and the key, if you take it to the wherever the event or the dealership is, and you present the key and it opens a lock, you get a TV set or stuff like that, or else you get a thing where if you go to the event that's advertised, whether it be a car dealership or some other thing, and you'll get a lottery ticket, and you go. It's called an incentive, a hook. Retailers have been using this sort of thing for years. Buy a house full of furniture, you get a free TV set. There's a place right near where I live that does that, But this is how they rope you in. They say, rip out the Bible, start reading a few phrases. Somewhere along the line, someone's going to say, let's have a few bucks to pay for their legal expenses, or, pay for their family while they're in jail, all this stuff. Or I'm in hiding because of the kangaroo court, and I've been kidnapped by the county sheriff, and I need money to fight this evil kangaroo corporate entity out there that's trying to bring me down. this international pedophile group is trying to stop us from getting the word out. All these excuses for the express purpose of collecting money. So, that's where all this comes into play. That's where these people have their power. They have the power of God. God is their money tree. And so this particular step of trying to drive some common sense into people isn't the only answer. The answer is, and that's what we found works in our Citizens Anti-Cybercrime Task Force, is to pester law enforcement and the various agencies into taking action. Filing complaints. File complaints with the Department of Justice. File complaints with the Federal Trade Commission. File complaints with the various bar associations where these people either reside, have their offices, or where they have gotten actively involved in legal situations. That's the way to get this done. And to publish the fact that what they're doing is against the law. But what it takes is people getting together in the numbers. Not just one or two people, but 500, 1,000, 10,000. To flood these agencies with complaints. Specific evidence of what they're doing. Send them links to these blogs where they claim to be part of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and a media spokesman for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. Expose them for falsely proclaiming that they are an agent of the United States government, and that is exactly what Timothy Holmseth is stating he is. No matter how many ways he tries to twist it, once he said that he is a media spokesman for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and for the President of the United States, he proclaimed that he was an agent for the United States government. He was a representative of the United States government. And it's a felony. It's against the law. It's a fraud. And so he needs to be reported for it. Again and again and again and again. And he tried until he drives some bureaucrat crazy with all these complaints that they say, we need to do something about this. We need to find that this guy's legitimate, or that he's a crook and prosecute him. And so eventually the investigations start. And that is the best way to solve these problems. Getting on the internet and doing blogs, doing YouTubes, getting into forums, writing each other, tweeting, Facebook pages, that's only part of what you do. But it's not going to accomplish anything because we don't have that kind of power. The power lies in the state and federal governments. Those are the people that are going to do something about this problem if they are given the incentive to do so. Government officials will not generally get involved in something they don't consider important unless we make it important. Unless they get hundreds of, if not thousands of complaints by people that are voters that laws are being broken and that something needs to be about these laws that are getting broken. That's when you get something done. That's when the federal government says, we got to shut these people up, and the only way we're going to be able to shut them up is to do something about what they're complaining about. And the investigators go out, and they even scare the living daylights out of these people to get them to stop what they're doing, or they arrest them. And that'll stop these people from doing this sort of thing. Now, you're not going to stop at 100% because for every one you take down, there's 10 more just like them. So you do the best you can. You take down the worst of the worst, and you just keep on keeping on. It's a lifetime generational thing. It's something you're going to fight the rest of your life, and something that people are going to fight throughout the generations, is to try and control this. And I'm going to give you an example of what happens. This is a particularly interesting angle to this. But if you go on YouTube and you search for Microsoft tech frauds, you're going to get a group of people, individual YouTubers, that will call these scammers. And they do any number of things. They tie out the switchboards, they do robocalls, they argue with people, they do all kinds of things. A lot of it illegal. And the strange thing about it, they get paid for it. These people actually make money, but they do it legitimately because they're fighting a worthy cause. They make money either through YouTube ads, or some of them have Patreon accounts. There's different things they do. But they, almost on a daily basis, call these foreign operators that are running these scams, that are taking advantage of people in my age bracket, 60s, 70s, so on. They make promises they can't keep. They get into their bank accounts and basically wipe them out. And they're making millions. And so these various YouTubers are in a mission to put a stop to it. And they have all these neat little YouTube pages. It's interesting to listen to them. It has an entertainment value because they really screw these people around. So that's how citizens, ordinary people that have the ability to do so, are fighting it, because law enforcement either can't or won't get involved. These are foreign countries. India is the biggest country with this kind of thing, and it's hard for them to get involved. And when I was around, it was the romance scams out of Africa, Lagos, South Africa, where you get people go around to dating sites, they'll put up a picture of a beautiful woman, try to entice a man, or vice versa. A handsome guy trying to entice a lonely woman. And they come up with, I'm locked up in the hospital, I can't get my passport back until I pay my hospital bill. There's all sorts of things they come up with to drain you out of your money. And it turns out that 99.9% of the cases, these are drug-infested males running these operations out of internet cafes in Africa. And we tried to do something about it because I got involved because a friend of mine had a workmate that got involved in one of these things. And he got ripped off for $5,000 before I was able to prove to him that the beautiful young woman whose picture he had in his wallet was a 19-year-old kid living in a hut with a dirt floor and was scamming him out of all this money. And we got him out of it. Never got his money back because once the money's gone, it's gone. You can't hire a recovery agent to go over there and take the money. It just doesn't work that way. Once the money's gone, it's gone. And that's why you try and prevent people from getting involved in these things. There was a big lawsuit against Western Union because of this. And Western Union finally cracked down and came up with certain rules to prevent it. And the banks are doing it with the gift cards, because that's another way. You get Amazon cards, Apple cards, all kinds of gift cards that these people will do to get money out of you. They'll say, you know, the IRS is after you for $10,000. If you don't pay it, we're going to put you in jail. And you got to go down to Walmart and buy a gift card. I mean, stupid things that, you know, you would think people would understand. You can't, you know, it doesn't work that way. But they do it. Because they get convinced. The people are sophisticated enough, they know how to convince people of things that, on the face of it, aren't possibly true. And this is where we run into a problem with people like Phil McConnell and Timothy Homestead. They know how to reach people. They use God to reach people. They use children to reach people. They use people in legal jeopardy to their advantage. They find that hook. They find that way to get into people's hearts and to extract them from their money. Because in the end, it's always about money. You know, they require subscriptions to listen to their programs. You got to have a key to get into the show or to get into the chat. And if it's there with the pretense that you're going to give them something that you're not going to deliver, that's when you get into fraud. Now, there are shows out there where people have subscriptions that have Patreon accounts, PayPal accounts, and that sort of thing, that do it legitimately. They do it to cover their expenses. But they don't say, send me the money and I promise this. They just say, you know, if you like what I'm doing, send me some money. You know, you don't have to if you don't want to, but, you know, internet access costs money, the computer costs money, the camera costs money, or whatever, you know, and if you could send it, send it. And that's, you know, that's fine. That's legitimate. Because you're not promising something that you're not going to deliver. Yeah, there's a difference. There's millions of YouTube channels that do all kinds of things. The biggest ones are people that review products. I know when I decide that I want to get a piece of computer gear or a camera or something, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch some of these because I want to find out what the object that I'm thinking of buying, if it's worth buying. And not everything these people review that they're going to say is great. You know, they may get on there and say this thing's a piece of junk. Well, they saved me some money because, you know, I didn't buy that piece of junk. So, but they, you know, it's their own personal opinion. Sometimes the companies will send them the product to review in hopes they get a good review. And according to YouTube rules, they have to disclose that. If you're sent something by a company to review, you have to tell your viewers that. Because that invokes bias in the review. Because, you know, you were given something, so they expect you to, you know, give them the ringing praises. This is done on Amazon all the time. You know, you get on Amazon, you read all these reviews, and you look at the review, and near the end of the review, it says, I was given this thing to, as an incentive to review it. And so then you know that you have to take that into account when looking at that review. So what you have is you have an honest return for your investment. You know, it's like instead of going out and having a magazine subscription to Consumer Reports, you get on YouTube and you're getting it from someone that is just like you and uses these things in their everyday lives. It was something that I was going to do on my other channel because I buy a lot of technology. You know, that's just what I do. I buy things when I can afford it anyway. But I got away from that because I had other things I'm very limited in the amount of time I got to do things, so I just got into this. Because of Timothy Homeseth. You know, a lot of things that happen on the internet anymore, in our sector of it, is because of Timothy Homeseth and people like him. That go out there and say and do things that are completely wrong. You know, Timothy Homeseth not only makes false claims about the various issues he gets involved with, but he destroys lives in the process. You know, falsely accusing Kim Picasio of some of the most dreadful things you could possibly think of is horrible. You got people wishing her dead. They have no idea who she is. I have not met Kim Picasio. I talk to her on the phone every once in a while. I chat with her on the internet, but I never met her. I've never sat down across from her personally and talked to her. Studied her facial expressions, the tone of her voice, the way, body language as they call it. I've never, I haven't had that opportunity, but I use my common sense to tell me that Kim Picasio didn't do these things. She's not capable of it. She's not that stupid. She's got a business, a thriving business. She offers a worthwhile service to the public. And she's not going to jeopardize all that to get involved with all this crap going on out there. She's not a multi-millionaire. She's no Epstein or any of this where she's got a tremendous amount of money. She lives within her means. And so why Homeseth has been on this obsession for all these years is something of a mystery. Now, there may not be any absolutes, but if I ever get around to it next year, I'm going to do the Flood of Noah series, and I'm going to get into examining just how everything came about and why Timothy Homeseth is so obsessed with Kim Picasio. There's a common thread, and I'm going to go into that common thread in detail from the beginning. It's taken me a long time to get all this information that I need to try and make something of a sensible, logical order to all this. So just bear with me while I put all this together. As for what's coming in 2020, I have a few ideas, and I have one idea that next Tuesday, December 31st, I will be getting into. Because I have a little thing I do every year. I've done it on my blog, and I'm going to do it again. Whereas I come up with a year of. Now this year that we're in right now, I had named the year of the Great Conflagration, because that's what it is. The world is quite literally on fire. And metaphorically, the internet's on fire. It's being ignited by fraud, abuse, and lies. And so it's been my mission to go through and try and talk about all these and to see if there isn't a solution to them. And so as a year of the Great Conflagration draws to a close, it will be time for me to make another designation to say what I feel the 2020 is going to be. And that's one of the announcements that I will be making on December 31st. And I'll make it on my blog like I always do, and I'm also going to make it on here. And it'll probably be on here before the blog because of my situation. Because I may not be able to I'll have the article set, but I might not be able to publish it until I get back to Orlando. I'll be out of Apopka, which is where I live, before I can do anything. But so my next year of is going to be part of a number of things that I'm going to talk about on next Tuesday. Now, to wrap things up a little bit. Today, Field McConnell is spending another day in jail. Hopefully he's reading his Bible, and hopefully he'll get the right message from it, that what he's been doing all this time is wrong. Because the 23rd of this month, which is tomorrow, there's going to be a day of reckoning. It's a very distinct possibility that the foreclosure is going to be finalized. The people that think that they are going to save Field McConnell's house are not going to save Field McConnell's house. The house is going to go into foreclosure. Simple as that. People are going to have to get out. The IRS is going to come over to the McConnell farm, and they're going to take everything. Stuff's going to be auctioned off to pay back taxes. The cars, the furniture, the tools, the land, the buildings, all gone. The vultures will land and pick out the carcass. What's left? Who knows what's going to happen there? So Field McConnell's doomed, one way or another. And this is before we even get into his legal problems. Because he has to come to Florida yet and answer for what he did in October and before. Field McConnell was given a chance to mend his ways. And he blew it, like he always does. And now he's going to pay the ultimate price. At a bare minimum, he's going to be in jail, either in the state of Wisconsin or in Florida, for the better part of 2020. And maybe beyond. If he's adjudicated guilty of the charges, and the judge decides to impose a severe sentence, Field McConnell could find himself in jail for the rest of his life. The man is 70 years old. He's not in the best of health. Prison's a rough place to be for a man that age. You get diseases in there, the people that are in prison usually don't take the best care of themselves. Drug addicts, and you got tuberculosis, you got the flu. We're right in the middle of flu season. You got all these people running around that aren't the healthiest in the world, and this old man's right in there with them. So it doesn't look good. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. But Field allowed himself to get in this situation. This is a man that was a professional. He flew aircraft, commercial aircraft, military aircraft. Takes a lot of discipline to do that. A lot of intelligence. It took intelligence that should have seen the stupidity of getting involved in what he got involved in. But he went down this road for whatever reason. And now he's having to live with these decisions, and not only him, but his family. So you have all this going on. And while Phil McConnell is suffering in prison, probably starting to realize that people on the outside aren't there to help him out. And that sooner or later, he's going to learn a hard lesson. That your best friend can be your worst enemy. That your best friend may not be your best friend. And that your enemies may, in fact, be your best friend. Because Phil McConnell's enemies, of which I could be considered, are trying to make him understand that he's on the wrong path, that he's on the eve of his own destruction, because he's listening to people that are giving him bad advice. He has enablers surrounding him that are convincing him to do these things. They're reinforcing the rule breaking, the false statements, the collecting of money under false pretenses, all of this. Because in the end, it's money, power, and fame that's driving all this. There's all that money. And with all that money comes power. And with all that power comes fame. Things the Bible talks about. And you're not going to be able to say, well, my bad, I had the best intentions, blah, blah, blah. That may work to mitigate your situation, but it's not going to get you out of it. You can't unrob a bank. You got to pay for attempted bank robbery. You know, there is such a thing. If you attempt to rob a bank, but you don't succeed, still get out of jail for it. Attempted burglary. You may not have succeeded in your burglary, but you attempted murder. Your purpose was to murder. You didn't succeed, but you attempted it. That's a crime. It's a very important word, attempt. And that's where we're at here. You attempted to do something against the law. You're going to jail for it. But in all these cases that I've discussed, now and in the past and will in the future, they didn't attempt these things. They actually did them. Maybe not murder. Maybe not attempted murder. Or burglary. But they did. In a way they did. Burglary by fraud. Theft by deception. Wire fraud. They did those crimes. It's all fraud. They have no intention of building a ranch for veterans. They have no intention of saving children. Their only intention is to line their pockets with silver and gold and paper. And talking about Zim bonds, which is probably one of the biggest frauds that's ever been perpetrated on the public. They come up with these schemes for the sole purpose of making money. Where if they had set it up right, they could have made a fortune. But they decided to do it the quick and easy way, the fraudulent way, in the name of God. They chose God. God is their hook. Compassion is their hook. Concern is their hook. That's what we have here. So I would suggest those of you out there who support Phil McConnell, Timothy Charles Holmseth, and people like them, think that over. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you not to support them. Because they're all dead set on supporting these people. But perhaps, as you continue to part with your hard-earned money, you start to contemplate, think about, consider, someday down the road you may decide it wasn't such a good idea to give your hard-earned money to these people, because they're not doing what they say they're doing. They're breaking the promises they made. They line their pockets, they buy their cars, they travel all over the country, go to tourist spots, do all these things, but they don't do what they promised to do. They make all kinds of promises, create all kinds of lofty goals, and then they don't fulfill them. They're involved in legal professions that they're not licensed to be in, giving out bad advice, making bad situations worse, because you send your money to them. Now, you're free to spend your money any way you wish. There's no law against it. But in most cases, the money you throw out there, whether it be $1, $10, $100, $1,000, that's money you'll never see again. It's gone. You've squandered it for whatever reason. So think about that when your kids need school supplies, or you need to put food on the table, or maybe you wanted to go someplace for vacation but you can't because you're sending money to these people. There's a cost. Now, if you have discretionary money where you can afford to do this and still do all these other things, then fine. That's your right. But you should be spending your money wisely, because it's not like investing in stocks where you might get a return on your investment. You're making a promise to a child by sending money to these people that your money is going to save them when it is not. So you, just like those you send the money to, are breaking your promise to that child. Until then, this is William K. Murtaugh, Murt Witness 1. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. Have a good one.